very exciting to come before you today and introduce a really great friend, Karen Burkhalter. And Karen came into my office on Tuesday of this week. She'd come up to me after church on Sunday and said, I just really need to talk with you. And she came in and started sharing a story that almost broke my heart part of the way through it, and one that encouraged me so incredibly that when I started retelling the story after she left, we decided this is a story that needs to be shared. This is God doing incredible work today right here in Canyon View. So Karen Burkhalter, I'm so glad you're here. And Karen, why don't you just start by telling the beginning of the story from when you came into my office on Tuesday afternoon.
Okay. Back in July, I found a bump in my breast, in my right breast, and so many things were going on in my life, that in my personal life, that I just more or less ignored it. And then July turned into August, and August into September, and the bump had turned into a lump and then a mass. And finally in mid-September, I knew that I needed to get this looked at, so I started to look for a doctor. And unfortunately, today it took a month to find a new doctor because you have to be accepted. It's not just something that happens quickly. So now we're into mid-October, and it's a large mass. And I finally got into the doctor October 24th, and when I went in, she examined it. I had told him that I had a bump under my arm. That sounded better than a mass in my breast. And she checked it, and she immediately said, Karen, that's not a bump, that's a mass. Why did you wait so long? And I just didn't have a good reason. And she proceeded to tell me that we needed to do some emergency tests because it was a large mass. And there was fullness above my clavicle, which for our family, we lost our mom when I was 10 to cancer. It's always been a taboo word, and we all understand the symptoms and how hard it can be to fight something like this. And so she ordered all these emergency tests, and the next day I was at community getting blood work, and the day after that I was at community getting a CT scan of my chest and my upper neck.
After you had seen the doctor, had some of your tests, nobody in your family knew?
No, I had told no one.
So what was your next step? Where are we in line now?
We are 4 days after seeing the doctor, and I came to church Sunday, October 28th, and I walked into the door, and they handed me the bulletin, which said, "Does God still heal today?" And I was nearly brought to tears because that's the question I wanted answered. And I went and sat down, and Pastor Kirk talked and then invited Steve up to give his testimony. And I was so touched by his testimony and encouraged. And then Pastor Kirk came back up and invited anyone out there who wanted prayer to come up. And I'm not the kind of person that would do that. I've been going to church since I was a little girl, but I would never walk up there. To me, it made me vulnerable, and it let people know that I was in need, and I'm just not the kind of person that does that. But the Holy Spirit moved me, and I walked up, and I really didn't want to go to Steve and Donna because I just thought, how can I ask them to pray for me when they have been through so much? But there I was, and they prayed for me so compassionately and with so much love, and I just felt so at peace, and I really felt like they knew me. I'd never met them, but they knew me, and I can't put into words. I just felt so loved and at peace when I walked out.
So what happened after you walked out of church? What's next?
I was supposed to have a mammogram 4 days later, and a half an hour before the mammogram, the hospital called and said their machine broke down. And I was frantic because I knew how important it was to get this diagnosed and to get this taken care of. And for the next 6 days until the next mammogram, God and I had quite a trek. I was up most nights, not sleeping, and I had a real battle with my faith and fear. And it was hard. Many times, most of the time, my faith went out, but if I'm going to be honest, there were times when the fear I just could not get rid of the fear.
So the morning that you walked in for your mammogram, you have a mammogram scheduled, it's put off for a week. Now you're going back in there to have your mammogram done. And what's your feeling when you're walking in to have this test done, and what happens in there?
Well, I knew something that no one else knew. And when I walked in for the mammogram, the technician was so nice. She said, "Karen, I need you to show me the mass. I need to fill it, and I need to mark it for the machine." And I said, "I can show you where it was, but it's not there anymore." And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "It's gone." And I proceeded to show her where it was, and she couldn't find anything. And she marked it anyway, and she did the mammogram, and then she took an extra slide of that side because of what my records had shown. And after the mammogram, I waited for about 10 minutes, and then they came in and said, "We need to do an ultrasound." And so they took me down for the ultrasound, and the lady spent quite a long time trying to find something, anything. And she said, "Karen, I just cannot find anything." And she asked me when the mass was there, and I said it had been there 3 months, and it was there up until I had felt it start to shrink about 7 days ago. And then the radiologist came in and said, "Wonderful news, I love to give good news. There's nothing there, everything's clear."
So then you went back to the doctor just this last week to see your doctor again so she could go over all of your test results, these emergency tests that she had ordered, because she had felt this mass. She had felt the swelling already coming in your lymph nodes, and you had other signs of this cancer starting to progress and take over. And you go back now to see this doctor after you've had all the tests, and what do you tell her, and what does she say to you?
Well, she asked me if the swelling was still going down, if the mass was still going down, and I told her that the mass was gone. And she said, "What do you mean gone?" And I said, there's nothing there, it is gone. And I said, "By the grace of God and the power of prayer." And she looked at me and she said, "Karen, I believe in the power of prayer and in divine intervention because I've seen it before." And I just am so thankful that she's my new doctor.
So Karen, I'm going to ask you the question that was on that bulletin. Does God still heal today?
Oh, has been an amazing journey, and He absolutely heals. I know in my heart that He healed me. I felt that mass 1,000 times, and from the time Steve and Donna prayed over me until I had the mammogram, it was 9 days. And in 9 days, that mass was gone.
Now, when Steve was sharing his testimony, one of the things that we spoke of that weekend was, freely you have received, now freely you give. Now, Steve exhibited that because he had received this healing, and he turned around to give. And his offering to give was he and Donna being open to pray for people when they came down. Now, if I was going to say to you, Karen, freely you have received, now freely you give, what message would you give to this congregation here today?
I would just like to encourage anyone out there who is in need of prayer. Maybe you have a heavy heart, something's troubling you. Come forward when Pastor Kirk invites you to, and let people pray over you. It's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to let people know that you need prayer, and you need love, and you need support. That's what we're here for. And God is great, and I'm just so thankful.
I am too. And I'm thankful for you and grateful because what you have done today is be able to say, I have been healed, and I want to share that. It's time to tell people of God's goodness. And I appreciate your courage, your bravery, and your obedience to God to do that. And grateful that He healed you, and that we would give praise and glory to Him for this.